welcome back to the Darius Gant Show. This is your host, Darius Gant, as well as founder and CEO of Tesoro AI, where we help innovative founders and executives build AI solutions and AI teams. In this podcast, we focus on cutting-edge technology, specifically artificial intelligence. By sitting down with forward-thinking founders and executives, we learn exactly how AI is being used to solve real-world problems. All right, if you enjoyed this podcast, and I know you will, make sure you subscribe on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Subscribe, and if you love it, give us that 5-star rating. Today, we'll be joined by a young and talented rock star, Apoorva Dornadula. Apoorva is the co-founder and CTO of a company by the name of Viralspace. Her team is focused on bringing visual intelligence to performance marketers. So think about the folks who are building ad campaigns on platforms like Facebook. Apoorva was recently featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 in the marketing and advertising category. In addition to telling us about what she's building over at Viralspace, she's also going to share her company's journey with data and all of the learning lessons that her team has gathered in the process of putting together a sound data strategy. If you yourself are looking to take the next step in your AI initiatives, make sure you take a look at the team here at Tesoro AI. Whether it's AI strategy, data labeling, AI-based software development, or staff augmentation, we got a strong team here that has your back. Head over to www.tesoroai.com. All right, without further ado, let's hop into the show and hear from Apoorva. All right, welcome to the show, Apoorva. Thanks for joining us. I actually saw that you had been awarded Forbes 30 Under 30. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was in the marketing and advertising category.
Yeah, very interesting. We definitely want to learn more about your story. I know you went and got the master's degree in computer science at Stanford, but if you could step back a little bit, maybe talk to us a little about Berkeley, Stanford, and then at what point did Viralspace enter the picture?
Yeah, definitely happy to talk about that. So I did my undergrad at UC Berkeley, like you mentioned, in electrical engineering and computer science. And back then, I was really interested in computer security. And then I read an article, it was actually by Google in talks with Fei Li, who is, a leading computer vision and AI researcher and professor, and she's done a ton of amazing things. But that's what got me interested in machine learning at first, because her article talked about, the challenges that machine learning is facing. And I had no clue that there was so many issues ethically and in terms of fairness and transparency that was going on. And so, which is why I decided to do my master's, one, to learn more about the space. And then another reason is to learn more about the startup ecosystem. So ended up going to Stanford, pursuing computer science there. I did some research in the Vision Lab, and I knew that entrepreneurship was something I did want to pursue. And so I signed up for this class called Startup Garage. And that was really where Viralspace started. I met my now co-founders on a spreadsheet, which is very Silicon Valley. I had written my name down, expert, like saying that I'm interested in computer vision and AI products. And my CEO, Hiro, reached out to me saying that he has an idea about how that could fit in with marketing. And so then Hiro, Michelle, and I, we took the class. And back then, we were actually doing something completely different from what we're doing now. So back then, during the class time, we were working on a marketplace that connected nano and micro influencers with small and medium businesses who needed this user-generated content for their social media. And, we were still in school, and we all graduated in 2019. So we were working on that while we were in school. And that was also when we got our first pre-seed money from Village Global to pursue this idea. So that was definitely validation for us. And then over the summer, we were in the Lightspeed Summer Fellowship, where that was really the first time we were actually working on Viralspace full time. And we noticed a lot of, challenges with our current marketplace idea, like we weren't getting enough pull from these small and medium businesses. So we decided to pivot into something that we actually always wanted to incorporate in the marketplace, which was engagement prediction. but we pivoted that into what we're working on now, which is how can we use visual insights to help performance marketers be data driven about their creative.
Okay, very interesting. So help us understand exactly what that means in later layman's terms for folks who may not have a background in marketing and understand. Yeah, just dive a little bit deeper into what the value proposition is and really what the pain point is that you're addressing.
Definitely. Yeah. So right now, when performance marketers think about an ad and think about the creative decisions that go into an ad, they ask themselves questions like, well, I want to be advertising this product, but I don't know what the messaging I should be using, or I don't know how the product should be laid out. I don't know the background color. I don't know the fonts. I don't know what the angle of the model, like should the model be looking at the camera? Like there's just so many factors that could go into that ad. And at the end of the day, right now, a lot of it is just guesswork, right? They'll guess like,
Okay.
oh yeah, this kind of looks nice, or like try to go off of intuition somehow. But the problem is that, that's very uncertain. And even though there is A/B testing, it's not scalable to try and test every single possible creative combination. And it also gets very expensive because, one of the goals marketers have is that the ad should perform well, even if you add more money to it. Like it doesn't really make sense that the ad performs well with just like $100, but does it perform well with like $5,000? That's the real question. So it gets very, very expensive. So what we can do is we understand various aspects of the ad, from very visual things, from in the image, also looking at aspects in the video, text, metadata, and we use all of that information together to predict the engagement of certain ads, and then use AI explainability techniques to figure out what the recommendations would be for them to be able to improve them.
Okay. And where are we generally, like performance marketers, right? Are they generally in, small businesses? Do we see them more in the enterprise? Are these individuals who step in like on a consulting basis to help out groups?
Yeah, usually we see them at large companies who have a consumer facing product, especially. So lots of fashion brands, makeup brands, clothing brands, even like gifts, any consumer object. That's really where a lot of performance marketers are there.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. So I'm thinking, if you do have, let's say like Mac, I'm not an expert in makeup by any means, but if they have, they have an ad that they're showing, there's some performance marketer who was behind the scenes deciding all the little, all the tiny things that go into that ad that's going to maximize the performance of that ad. Historically, it's been more of an art because there's so many moving pieces, that there was really no way, despite some of the A/B testing, to determine how to get the best bang for your buck. So, they kind of had to do some, let's call it art versus guessing. But where you guys are able to step in is based on all of these data points that you're able to look at, you're able to determine how they actually get more bang for their buck based on the science.
Yep, that's exactly right. Like the performance marketers usually work with the creative team who actually goes and creates the content. But yeah, exactly.
Okay. So how is it the performance marketer that's actually using Viralspace, or, what's kind of the user experience and the user interface?
Yeah, totally. So it is the performance marketer that ends up using Viralspace because they're the ones that are so in tune with their ads. We specialize in Facebook ads currently. And so,
Okay.
they have the Facebook ads manager open. They're looking at the numbers. So a lot of our the Viralspace product experience kind of tries to mimic some of those aspects that ads manager has, but also tries to simplify it so that they're really only looking at what they need to see.
Got it. Got it. And so I guess, are they looking at different aspects of what's happening from like a mobile app? Is this a desk, are they using this on the desktop?
Our website is mobile friendly, but since a lot of this work, like ads manager work, any like most marketing work, it happens on the desktop. It
Yeah.
really is optimized for a desktop. And maybe I can go into some of the two products that we have just to give a better
Yeah,
sense
that'd be
of
helpful.
yeah, what we do. So the two products we have are plan and optimize. So plan is our pre-production product. So let's say that you have a campaign for a new makeup product that's coming out next year, and you want to know, like, how do I want to design my ads for this launch? So what you can do with our plan module is you can filter to different time ranges, you can filter to different product lines, and you can understand how your image, text, video, all of these features, what are the best features that would work for that category. So for example, it might tell you that having a solid background with maybe a patterned cover or something works really well for this particular time range and this particular product. And so this is like before you actually create the creative. And then our optimized product is, let's say that you have some ads running, but you want to start to optimize them and figure out how you can get your ads to improve. So for that one, we generate recommendations for each ad, and they're very specific, and they're really specific for that ad, for that product, for that time range as well. And so they can then apply those recommendations and improve.
Okay, got it. This is very interesting, especially, that you're doing it like within the Facebook platform. One of the things that I've heard from folks who market on Facebook, right, is the issue is, look, kind of to your point, I put in $200 and I was able to generate a ton of leads from that $200, or maybe even a ton of impressions or whatever it may be. But then I put in $1,000 and I didn't, the productivity of the ad went down. And there's no way to explain why. And they go into kind of, all right, well, we had to create a million different versions. But if you're, depending on who you are, do you really have a lot of time to make that many different versions of the ad to figure out exactly what works? So it sounds like where you all are stepping in is really to, number one, look, we're going to make sure you get the high ROI out of this. But in terms of versioning, we can also help you with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely a common problem. It's like there's an ad fatigue that ends up happening as you scale. Users have seen the ad a lot, or they've seen similar ads a lot. And so that kind of iterative process of continuously improving it definitely matters.
Now, where does artificial intelligence come into play here? What is it helping you to do that otherwise was not, possible?
We use it in a couple different areas. So, one of the most important things we do is the whole extracting features or tagging each ad with a bunch of features. So that is one big place where we use AI.
Okay.
For example, one of our clients really, like, one of the features that they wanted was to be able to identify what exact products from their thousands of item catalog actually appear in their ad. So that was actually a really fun project that we did, where we built a model that would be able to do that kind of identification. So that's one place. And a lot of our feature extraction capabilities is also done via AI models, like detecting whether there's a phone in the pocket of the product or things like that. We do automatically.
Really quickly, when you say feature, what are you referring to?
By feature, I mean, whether a phone is present in the pocket, like that would be considered one feature of the ad.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's one place. Another place is when we actually go about generating recommendations. And so what we do there is we train a model that predicts the engagement of an ad. And then we use explainability techniques to try and attribute what features impacted the performance positively and what impacted it negatively. And that's how we generate our recommendations. And so that's another place that we use AI.
We talked a bit about the data. This is always the biggest hurdle, right? Whether you're a startup or whether you're an enterprise. Can you talk a little bit about where the initial data came from for you to seed these algorithms, and your thought process behind how you would collect the data? And later on, I want to get into some of the learning lessons that you guys pull from that, because I like what we talked about before.
Yeah, so we are using first-party data. So this is everything that the client gives us. So they actually give us access to their ads manager, and we use the marketing APIs to pull ads, to pull all of this data. And this is all private data, right? Like KPI data per ad is not something that's readily available. So we do use first-party data very, very heavily. And we make sure that the data is also very private for each account or each brand. Like we don't share data across accounts or anything. It's all just using first-party data per ad. Some of our models, like identifying objects, do come from pre-trained models that use these bigger data sets like ImageNet or Coco or Visual Genome to pre-train it and get it started. But it is definitely fine-tuned on our customers' data.
Okay. And when the data comes in, I mean, does it require a ton of transformation? What's that process like? Or, if it's different now than it was before, can you walk us through the shift?
Yeah. So the process for us of getting an ad to getting tagging all of its features is actually kind of a snake right now. And the reason for that is because our features are kind of fall into different categories. So one is that there are features that we can extract automatically. So these are things like oftentimes metadata features or simpler features like detecting the colors in the image or detecting keywords in the image. Things like that are things we can do pretty automatically. And then there's some things that require some cleanup. So it actually goes through our labeling team to help clean up those things. So these things involve our product detection. Like they might need to tweak the bounding boxes a little bit, especially when products are hidden or not detected. And so those features get completed by the labeling team. And then of course there's some hand labeled ones that also go through our labeling team. So after all of that is done, we now finally have a representation of an ad with the features that we are extracting from it. And then we use those features. We use like a one-hot transformation right now where we've been experimenting with other kinds of transformations from getting those features into our machine learning pipeline. But for now, that's the one that we do features.
Okay. But then you also needed to create an internal tool, right? So you can accelerate this transformation process.
Yeah. Let's see, I think it was March of this year, we built a labeling platform that allowed our internal labeling team to come on and label our ads. And the reason why we went with an internal solution was because we noticed that this actually surprised me at first, but a lot of companies, they use the exact same ad creative as different ads. So, if we went with maybe an external one, we might be labeling the same creative multiple times down the pipeline. With our labeling platform, once you label one ad, all of the ads that are the same creative get labeled with those labels. So we kind of built in some things that optimize it for us.
At any point, did you all try to use kind of some of the other automated, like the platform APIs out there?
So we do use AWS, like the recognition APIs for some of the things like object detection and text recognition. But we did realize that those labels also require cleanup.
Okay.
So that also goes through our cleanup process.
Yeah. So for certain types of data, right, it takes more of a contextual understanding of what something is over and above what, an automated platform might be able to do.
Definitely. And it's just a matter of time before after we have enough data cleaned and labeled ourselves, we can start to make our own models with that data and not rely as much on those APIs.
Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. So I like to touch on that because you always see these scenarios where everything you do with data takes way more time than kind of the magic of what is created with AI. So let's jump back and talk about your conversations with the clients. Are the clients generally interested in the fact that, hey, you're using artificial intelligence to do this? Or is it that they're hyper focused on, look, can you help me save some money here, or help me increase the visibility of my ads,
I think they're definitely interested in the cost saving and the benefits that they get. I think the fact that it's an AI product is like a plus because it's something that is new tech, cutting edge, but definitely the outcome is really what matters to them. And I think something else that they really appreciate is we are very, very, the features that we scope out are very custom to them, and we work together to do it. So there's a lot of there's like a big white glove approach that we use so that we make sure that the insights that they get are the ones that they get, and not cookie
Mm.
cutter ones like, oh, what are the objects in the image? It's something that is more general.
Yeah, yeah, high personalization there. So I guess when you have those conversations, right, what are some of the metrics that you speak to? And I mean, we kind of alluded to some of them, but do you have specific metrics that you state up front? Here's how much we're going to save you. Here's how much we're going to increase your ad visibility.
Yeah, definitely. So it varies a little bit from brand to brand because each brand focuses on something slightly different. But cost per action is one that's more or less general across a lot of companies. And action can be something slightly different for each brand, but oftentimes it means something like purchases or buy leads, something that indicates some sort of conversion. And so
Okay.
we usually say that, we can help you get at least a 5% improvement on your CPA. And oftentimes we go above and beyond that, but that's kind of our baseline.
One thing I'm interested in learning more about, right? Generally for folks, let's say if you have a 20-year industry veteran in digital marketing, right? They're generally coming in. If they have a startup, they're generally coming in with a book of contacts where they're going to reach out and say, "Hey, look, can you take a look at the product? We'd love to do a POC for you." For you, the journey's been a little bit different, right? You come out of a master's program, you get into the Lightspeed fellowship, but not necessarily having like a deep Rolodex. I'm making assumptions here, but a deep Rolodex. So I would love to hear more about that journey to, having those first conversations. What did you do to get those first conversations going? And was this something that maybe even the fellowship at Lightspeed was able to help you out with?
Yeah, totally. That's a great question. And so we actually were talking to, I think, and one of our investors connected us to some folks but the idea of a customer advisory board is the technique or the approach that we use. So we leverage the fact that we're relatively new in the space. We're just out of school. We have a lot of, we have a very specialized knowledge in a certain space in terms of computer vision, AI, marketing, but maybe not as many contacts like you said. So we cold reached out to hundreds of companies asking them to be on our customer advisory board to help us develop a product that would work for them. And that kind of messaging actually is what got us the pilots that we have today. They were really interested in working with us to design a product that works really well for them.
Mm.
And that's what we did. So they ended up being design partners.
So what does that look like? A customer advisory board, is it that they're providing you both data and feedback on what you ultimately produce with that data so that you can build the product?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, they give us access to their data, and we have weekly check-ins with them on the progress that we're making. And now the meetings have of course drastically changed from what it was in the beginning of the year, but we're actually testing we're actually testing the products that we've built out with them. And now it's more feature requests, and kind of they help us with product direction based on what they want to see.
So is this something, I mean, obviously you all had raised some seed capital at the time and probably need a bit of that to feed yourselves. But I'm curious if this is something, I don't have any funding whatsoever, right? I'm bootstrapping this thing. Is that a strategy that someone could take? I mean, does it require capital for an AI company, right, to take an approach where you're saying we're going to bring on customer advisors versus raise a ton of money and implement some, an expensive sales or marketing strategy?
That's a really good question. I think it really depends on what the product is. Like if it's a product that requires a partnership, or the path to payment is very long, like maybe you need to train and it'll only work after a couple months, then I think it might be hard to bootstrap because it's not something that will come immediately, and you're not even sure if the conversion will happen. But if it
Mm-hmm.
is, but if it's a company where you can very easily show value very quickly, I think bootstrapping it could be a good idea because the span to actually getting paid is a much shorter and more certain.
Yeah. So as you guys were going through this customer, as you thought about this process, customer advisory, I mean, you have two co-founders, correct?
Yeah.
Hero and Michelle?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, all right. My memory is still a little bit. Okay. So was it just you three taking on that workload, or were there other folks? Had you already hired other folks full time to help out?
Yeah, we do have other folks. We have three amazing engineers working with us. We hired our first full stack engineer last June, and he's been with us through the pivot, and he's an amazing guy. And now we have one machine learning and one backend infrastructure engineer who's joined us in the beginning of the year.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of a combination. What I'm hearing is kind of a combination of, look, you may need some funding to get started, but if you can create and show value pretty quickly, that's really going to determine, because there's other people who are going to be needed in this process, but
Yeah,
that's going to determine how much ultimately capital gets put into that effort.
definitely. Yeah, like that's totally true. And I think something that's really helped us was that me, Hero, and Michelle's background are so different. So we're able
Hmm.
to kind of, like, from the start, we were able to own certain areas of the business that needed to be done. For example, Hero would handle sales and biz dev, Michelle would handle design and product, and then I'd handle the technical side.
That's helpful. Beyond that, if we could go back, I know you mentioned meeting your co-founder Hero on a spreadsheet. How did you
Mhm.
all come across Michelle?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the class had 2 quarters. The first quarter, it was a lot of need finding, really trying to figure out what exactly we were going to build, what are the pain points. And
Yeah.
we realized that, we were in this marketing area, but I don't come from a marketing background. Like, Viralspace is the first time I've actually seen any kind of ads manager. So, and Hero really has run ads before, but his a strong point are sales and biz dev and all of those kinds of things. And so we were really, really lacking. We had a huge gap of marketing and design. And so on campus, there is a club called Basis. And Hero reached out to Michelle as a cold email. Like, I think cold email is just
Yeah.
something that ends up coming up a lot in the story. But he reached out to her because she was the head of marketing at this organization. And she really liked the idea, and the three of us really, our personalities really came together, and turns out that we worked really well together. So that's how we kind of got started there.
Hire a machine learning engineer, right?
Yeah.
What was there a particular type of profile that you were looking for, and kind of what was your process for going out and searching for that person? I think one of the things is various people have various different approaches. Some organizations say, hey, we're going to retrain one of our software developers. Some folks say we're going to take someone out of academia, and some folks say we want someone who's seasoned as a machine learning engineer already. But the common thing is it's still pretty tough market in terms of finding that particular talent, just because there's a shortage, relative to demand. So we'd love to hear about what you all look for and what the process was.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, like we did a lot of research before getting into even starting to hire, because it was our first time, like, hiring for real. So what we did was, so the kind of person that we were looking for was someone who can complement my current AI skill set. In the past, I've only worked with images, but videos
Mm,
are a huge part of marketing, right? We're seeing more and more video ads. So we knew that we wanted someone who had worked with videos before and could get started on analyzing videos right off the bat. So that was kind of the kind of person we were looking for. And what we did was, we posted on AngelList, we posted on a lot of different Facebook groups and LinkedIn, and we even reached out. So what we did was we reached out to some people that really fit that profile at different
okay.
companies. And that is what worked for us. So the person that's currently our machine learning engineer came from another startup who specialized in doing video analysis actually for marketing. So he's already really familiar with the space.
Okay. And you have to kind of woo this person away from a position where they're probably highly valued already, right? So
Right.
were there certain things you all were able to do to convince them to make that jump?
I think one of the biggest reasons that seemed most compelling, I think, in my opinion, was the fact that, I think he would have the best answer to this, but I think, the opportunity to really lead from
Mm.
scratch what our machine learning strategy would be going forward, like lots of ownership on what this looks like. And that's really exciting, right? Like you can't really get that from a big company. You can't even get that from a Series A company that already has that groundwork laid out. But, the opportunity to strategize with us, I think was really appealing.
Okay, okay. Yeah. At that point, you're looking for a certain type of personality, right?
Hmm.
Not someone who's like, look, I want things laid out from me from A to Z where I just come in and execute. It's, you know, you are actually looking to them to bring you ideas, right, for how you should tackle the next issue. And things are changing every day. So you have to kind of have more of an entrepreneurial mindset versus purely kind of, look, I'm great at execution, but the strategy, dealing with uncertainty, I'm not so used to.
Definitely, definitely. And I think that's a skill not only our machine learning engineer picked up and is really good at, but like any like any of our first engineers, even probably up to like the 10th engineer that we hire, would have to have that kind of mindset, since it's a small company. There's so much potential to grow and things change all the time. So
Hmm.
really being able to adapt and take challenges head on, being okay with uncertainty, being okay kind of dropped in the deep end and figuring things out themselves.
Okay, okay. Super helpful. Yeah, so I want to be mindful of time, but I do have a couple more questions, more so quick fire. But now that you've been in it for, a couple years now, what's been your favorite, old or new, tech tool?
Okay. I'm not sure if this counts as a tech tool, but I am in love with Notion. I'm not, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a
That counts.
Yeah, okay, great. It's like transformed the way that we operate. Like Notion, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of like a wiki where you can put your notes, you can use it for planning, you can use it for scoping. I think it's kind of similar to Jira's Confluence, but it's just like transformed the way that we take notes and how we document. Like now, if we have a new hire come on, it's like there's very little additional work we need to do since everything is already on Notion, and it's just a matter of them giving them the links to actually read through. But it's been such a huge transformation for our startup, going from having some notes on like from on various Google Docs to like having everything consolidated in one place on Notion. It's been really amazing.
Yeah, hearing you say that is interesting because a lot of other guests have said Notion, which makes me think, yeah, the investors who who have put money into Notion have to be pretty excited. Like, look, the customer feedback is amazing. So shout out to Notion for doing a great job.
So yes, yes.
Okay, next question. Someone that you are inspired by or who you follow within AI or in business in general.
Yeah. So, like Feifei is the reason that I got interested into AI and machine learning in the first place. So I think, Feifei is someone who I really admire. Like I feel so grateful that she was my advisor when I was at Stanford. And I think a lot of what I've learned about the importance of AI ethics and transparency and making sure that there's always, a human in the loop, and making sure
Mm-hmm.
that being very mindful about practicing best practices when it comes to bringing AI into industry is something that, I've kind of gotten from her. So she's definitely someone who I look up to.
I love to hear you thinking about that. I mean, it's not necessarily something that, especially when you're running a startup, it's like, look, we need to survive. And that's almost, it's tempting to put that number one and not think of anything else in terms of just doing whatever it takes to generate revenue, get customers, build tech that's going to get you to that point. But this conversation around ethics and AI is very important. So it's encouraging to hear you having that discussion and even your company making that kind of the bedrock for where you're going to start, how are you going to build, and how, the values of the company overall.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think explainability is something that's so core, that's built into the product. Like, we show our customers why their ads did well and why we think it's a good ad or a bad ad. So we really do try to be as transparent as we can, and definitely something that we will continue to improve on.
Okay, awesome. Well, Apoorva, we really appreciate your time. This has been super informative. Love the use case. Where can we find you? Anyone who's interested, where should they look you up?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is, I check LinkedIn a lot. So LinkedIn is one place, or my email, apoorva@viralspace.ai, is also a good place.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining us, Apoorva, and we'll have to have you back for an update soon.
Definitely. Thank you so much.